Okay, so this video is going to be getting to Mythic in November. It took me a while, I guess. At the start of the month, I was mostly just playing drafts for like the first half of the month, so but eventually I got to Mythic. I was trying to play green-white Yorion for a bit, but that was not going very well. So I switched to my Esper Doom deck, and it went a lot better. I'm just going to hit play now. Maybe I'll talk about the deck afterwards. This is going to be a long video, so I might as well start playing it now. So yes, I got to Diamond Tier 1, and then I decided to start recording. I didn't really feel like recording, just getting to this point, because that's another like 2 or 3 days of footage. I mean, like, it would have been a few hours anyway. So yeah, once I started playing this deck, I actually did rank up to tier 1 pretty quickly. But here we are. I was definitely hoping I would make it to Mythic in this. Otherwise, I'd probably just throw this video away and try again the next day. So I am going to make some mistakes in this video. Some of these games I don't play perfectly. But when I don't make really bad mistakes, usually I end up winning. So I think it's like kind of a testament to this deck. I definitely lost some games, but most of the games I lost, I think I could have won. I just played badly. So yeah, I got to use my Shadow's Verdict then. I wasn't expecting to be able to use that very much against this deck, unless they had a lot of tokens, I suppose. But they have the Extinction event, that's pretty good for them. Gets the 4/4 and the Simulacrum. I am playing 4 Simulacrum in this deck. I used to only be playing like 2, so I've been making like little changes to this deck. I think it's at a pretty good state. It's just some of the lower cost cards, I'm not entirely sure if I have the numbers all correct, but it seems pretty good, as you'll see in this video. So they have ECD, and I don't have one. That's pretty annoying. The fact that they already have Yorion in hand and they can just blink the ECD again is a problem. I'll be getting taxed on my non-creature spells, which is every spell in my hand at this point. Shadow's Verdict isn't doing much anyway. So here they go with the Yorion. I think they'll get Doom now. I knew Doom wasn't going to be that great in this game, but I figured maybe they'll just exile it with the ECD, so like there is value in playing it just because then they have to remove it with the ECD. They didn't have to, actually. Like, they could have just kept it around. They have plenty of omens to sacrifice, and they probably have Dance of the Manse in their deck. So Elspeth's Nightmare is a card that I wish I had in this game. I can't actually remember. Like, this is looking really, really bad. I can probably remember thinking at this point that I'm just going to lose, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this game goes. So it's going to cost me 7 for the ECD, but I can get rid of theirs. Even though I don't think they have anything in the graveyard to get back, Just in case they have Dance of the Mance, I definitely want to exile the ECD. But maybe I just hit the Elspeth's Nightmare with it, now that I think about it. It's one of those two, because Elspeth's Nightmare... Okay, I hit the Yorion. I was going to say Elspeth's Nightmare would have made me... would have meant I would have to discard. I mean, and I do. So I'm not entirely sure if that play was correct. Exiling Yorion with ECD. I knew that I was going to blink it next turn. But now that I think about it, I probably should have just hit the Nightmare and just left them with the Yorion. So yeah, that's probably a mistake there. Because I need to deal with the Nightmare anyway, since it's going to exile my graveyard, and I have Dance of the Mance, so... Yeah, I think that play was... like exiling Yorion with ECD did not turn out to be the right play. Of course, the reason that I exiled it was because I didn't want them to be able to get it back somehow with ECD. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. So here... Okay, they just conceded. They had enough. So let me just get the score going. 1-0. There's going to be some losses, I think, now. Yeah, this was an interesting game. I don't think I made any huge mistakes. But I think it's interesting to see a game like this because you never really play against this deck. I don't know how... I know it's not very popular. Because maybe this is the first time I've played against it. So it's like an is it spells? Basically, it's just an is it spells deck. A lot of instants and sorceries, probably a lot of removal and counter spells like that. Yeah, I didn't really care about them countering that because the dance can get it back. I'm not even scrying with the tome because I can just draw with it eventually. So here I decided to buy Yorion, I think, just because it's more mana efficient, really. The other option would have been to spend 2 mana just drawing a card, but I already kind of have plenty of cards in hand. I thought this would be like a really good matchup for me. I was thinking they probably just have a ton of removal spells in their hand, and I don't really have that many creatures. The one card that I wanted to draw in this game and probably would have just won me the game was Elspeth's Nightmare. Because that would exile their graveyard, and they need their graveyard. So I guess it was pretty nice for them to have the Shredded Sails here, basically stopping me from drawing 4 cards. But I knew that I had Dance of the Mance anyway to get it back, so I didn't really care. So I didn't have a ton to do this turn. I ended up just playing the Doom Foretold, which was probably a mistake, but I knew that I could just get the Doom back with Dance anyway. So I didn't care about losing it. I actually kind of wanted it in the graveyard so that I could get it back. So they got an 11/11 token. I don't think there's too much in my deck that can even deal with that, except for Shadow of the Sky and Shadow's Verdict, which both deal with it. I mean, the Verdict deals with it a little bit better. So here, I think I'm just going to play Birth and Yorion. Okay, I'm going to shatter. Because there's a chance that they just have removal spells for my creatures and then they can just hit me for 11. So also now I can just draw with a tome. So I wasn't scared with the vision because I knew I could just get back the the Doom Foretold. But what I should have done here, I think I'm not sure. I don't think I really made a mistake then. I should have known that they had a negate, and I should have been playing like I knew that they had that. So what I could have done then was just play the Doom Foretold by itself instead of using Dance. But that's not what I did. So they would have counted the Doom Foretold, and then potentially I could have just danced here. Oh no, they had a negate anyway. They had the double negate. Yep. So that's why I put the Doom Foretold as bait, so that I could dance and get back. I think I just get back 2 Doom Foretolds here. But yeah, the game's going to be over pretty soon from here. I don't know why I'm taking so long to pick these. So I only got back 1 Doom. Don't know why, but it turned out not really to matter anyway, because this is what happened. Kazul's Fury for 28 in their upkeep before they had to sacrifice the double vision. So yeah, I didn't make any mistakes that I could see that game. I didn't even know what they were doing, like what their combo was. But you got to see it then, so yeah, I wasn't really like upset about that loss. It's a deck that I'd never really play against. Unfortunately, yeah, I kept an island here. I knew I just wanted a land, but really I wanted a white land. So this was an interesting game. I did get stuck on white mana kind of, but I knew I had the golden egg, so I was just like, I can just use that for white and then I'll actually get a plains, so, and then I can still draw with the tome. So playing against another Esper Doom deck, I kind of hate playing against Yorion decks, I think. Mostly because I know it's going to be a long game. It's probably my own fault for playing a slow deck. But it doesn't help when my opponent is also playing Yorion. But I suppose it could be worse, could be playing against rogues or something. Although this deck has a decent matchup against rogues. Especially with Elspeth's Nightmare, if you can resolve it. It's good for killing their creatures and making them discard their counterspells. So they play the Doom Foretold, and I was like, that's actually kind of good for me. Unfortunately, I'm kind of stuck on land, so I drew one then. This is where I make a mistake. Yeah, I really, really should have hit the Elspeth Conquers Death then. Because I was going to play another Nightmare then. But the fact that they drew a land here means that they can play the ECD. They also have Yorion, they can blink it. So that was a huge mistake for me. The reason that I discarded the dance is because I was like, well, they could get the ECD back, but I was just going to exile the graveyard anyway, so there was no chance that they could have got it back from the grave. So yeah, the game I think was just basically over because I didn't make them discard ECD. I was thinking even before I played even before that came up, that's what I didn't want them to have. But instead, I just instinctively made them discard a dance, which was very, very wrong. And then I was basically behind the entire game. So yeah, but some of these games I just didn't even want to show, and this is one of them. Just because I made such a bad mistake. Which I think I was probably just going to win had I made them discard the ECD. Because then I would have got to make them discard another card and exile the graveyard anyway. I mean, potentially they could have done like a small dance, so I couldn't have exiled the other enchantments, but it still would have been way better. So yeah, I'm just stuck with all the wrong cards basically. So that's a good extinction event for them. Exile all my creatures. They keep theirs. So my graveyard's getting exiled, and I knew that. I also know that they have Dance of the Man. Yeah, this game's basically over. I'm not sure why I didn't just concede. I do feel like skipping ahead. I kind of wish I was playing this video at a faster speed, but so they just dance for 5. I should just concede here, right? I really should. I don't think there's any chance that I win this game. Yep. Finally. Okay, so here's the other game where I make a huge mistake. So look forward to that. So I knew that they were playing rogues because they had Lurrus. But yeah, this is going to be hard to watch, this one. This is one that I wish I could just skip through and pretend that didn't happen. What I will say is I don't play Fabled Passage that much. I mean, there's a lot of decks that I make where I just don't even have it. But this time, like, I was holding on to using the passage because I knew I was playing against rogues, and having one more card in the graveyard can matter. So I actually really didn't want the Omen to get countered because I knew I wanted to draw a land. But I suppose it didn't matter when I didn't want it to get counted. Yeah, so that's why I played it before they milled me. And here is where I make a massive mistake. I wanted to play Doom Foretold this turn, but yeah, as soon as I saw that land come into play tapped, I was like, oh no. All I had to do was play the swamp first, and they couldn't have even... Well, they could have done a drown in the lock, but that's one less counterspell in their hand. They would have had to play the Thieves Guild Enforcer and then use drown in the lock, but... Yeah. Spending that turn doing nothing was a huge problem. Like, and now they have the Didn't Say Please, which they couldn't have even cast last turn. And it's just like, it's all downhill from here. I have 3 Yorion in my hand that I don't need. Yep, and I'm gonna have a... Like, even though I have the Doom Foretold, the Shadow's Verdict, kind of everything I need, it just doesn't matter because I can only really play 1 spell a turn and it will just get countered. So yeah, the fact that I made that mistake with the lands on turn 4, I'm blaming that on why I lost this game. So I could have potentially used Shadow's Verdict then. I don't know if they had a counterspell or not, which is why I played the Doom Foretold, because I was thinking I would rather that just gets countered. But of course what they had was Into the Story. And they're playing the Ruin Crab, I think, just because they can just sack it to the Doom Foretold. Yeah, I think this game was close enough that if I hadn't made that mistake on turn 4, I would have just won it pretty comfortably, because it was a huge mistake. So even though I could sack the egg to Doom Foretold, I needed the life. They had so much damage on the board. I knew this Shadow's Verdict was probably not going to resolve. And it didn't. So yeah. That was... Yeah. I knew... Okay, so those were 2 games that I didn't really want to watch again. But now that we're past that, now that we're past that, it should be kind of smooth sailing from here. So playing against Gruul, I think this deck has a really good matchup against Gruul. I don't lose to it very often. I actually thought the green-white deck would have a decent matchup against Gruul, but somehow I just kept losing every single time. Probably because Grateful Apparition just gets killed by Bonecrusher Giant. I'm gonna blame that on the fact that that the green-white deck doesn't do too well, and that a lot of people are playing Gruul at the moment. Like, a lot of people. It's probably maybe even more popular than Rogues. There definitely was a point where I just noticed way less Rogues being played, and I don't know why. Maybe Gruul did good in a tournament and Rogues didn't. So here I just blocked their 1/1s because I actually ended up preventing a whole bunch of damage by them not putting the Embercleave on the Lovestruck Beast. And that also basically told me that they don't have any more 1/1s in their hand. Otherwise they would have just Embercleaved the Beast, I think, and then, dealt a whole bunch of damage and attacked with it again next turn. So I guess that's pretty fortunate that they don't have another 1/1 here, like another Lovestruck Beast. They're only at 4 lands, so even if they did have that Brushfire Elemental, I mean, that's still 6 damage. That would still be 6 damage, I suppose, even if they couldn't also equip the Embercleave. So they go for Galia. I don't think that's a proper card in the Gruul deck, because it's the first time I've ever seen any Gruul player use it. I really like that card. I don't think it's that great, though. I've definitely made some Galia decks before that were just bad. But, yeah. So I can make him discard the other Embercleave anyway, so I don't really care about that. And yes, ECD is definitely a card that I was looking for, because I wanted to have a way to deal with the other Embercleave, the one that's on the board. So I can see most of their hand, except for one card that they drew. I think I made the right block here. Block them with 6 tokens, and I know I'm losing a lot, but I am preventing all the damage. I don't care if the Simulacrum dies, or all my tokens for that matter, because they weren't doing a whole lot else. And Shadow's Verdict ended up being a pretty good draw, although I could have just used ECD. I didn't need Shadow's Verdict then. But I'm not going to complain about drawing that. I think there is definitely 1 or 2 games where I get a big Shadow's Verdict, and it's I think it's really nice to get a good result playing that card that no one really plays. So Doom Foretold is so good against Gruul. Probably the best deck that Doom Foretold is good against. So they're kind of still in this game. I know I could have sacked the ECD, but I did have a Simulacrum in the grave that I wanted to get back. So yeah, this is looking pretty good for me. I actually forgot that they had the Love Struck Beast. For some reason, when I looked, I didn't even see the Love Struck Beast there. It might have been because it had Summoning Sickness or something, but all I saw was the 1/1s. So that was a little mistake, but it didn't really matter. And yeah, there was definitely some games here where I was just like, are you going to concede or what? And yeah, they do. They did concede. So... is this Gruul again, or is it mono red? It's mono red. So yeah, this deck actually has been getting decent results against mono red, even though they're playing second here, which I suppose is good for me. You can play the Omen before the Robber trigger, but I just think it's better to play after. I know you can set it up so that there's a land on top and then they exile the land, but that's not... like, I kind of want to draw lands anyway at this point. If I didn't want to draw lands, then yeah, I would probably just go for the Omen first. But here, somehow they just didn't have anything. That's really good trade for me. They didn't even play the Annex pre-combat. Maybe they were expecting me to have like a Heartless Act or something that I would otherwise want to use on Annex. But yeah, the fact that I had Shadow's Verdict here, I just wanted to get the Simulacrum onto the board to get the Verdict mana. I could have prevented 4 damage here, and I think that would have actually been correct. But I just didn't bother because I knew that the Verdict is not going to exile my Simulacrum, and maybe I would want it back on defense. But yeah, that Shadow's Verdict was basically just game then. That was the... that's why you play that card. To beat up mono red. So yeah, most of the time, like 90% of the time, I'm always just sacking my Fabled Passages on their turn, or just instantly sacking them when I play them. Which I'm going to blame on why I made that mistake before when I was playing against rogues. So yeah, I didn't particularly want to keep a passage, but I knew I wanted to land. That's what I was scrying for with the tome. I would have actually just played an Elspeth's Nightmare, onto an empty board because I knew that they were just a big red control deck. It was pretty obvious. But I got to kill a Simulacrum anyway. And I knew that I wanted to discard their Ugins before they could play them. At the moment they're only at 6 mana, so... And of course they had Ugin in hand. So it's not really a tough decision there. I can play another Elspeth's Nightmare. That's probably what I do, maybe not. Yeah, I guess I just save it for later. Which is fair enough. Just buy Yorion. Because what I can do with Yorion is I can play Elspeth's Nightmare and then blink it with Yorion. So you just keep making them discard. I knew I didn't want Shadow the Sky. So that was a good scry then. Exiling the graveyard doesn't matter, so I definitely just want to keep getting the discard from the Elspeth's Nightmare as much as I can. So I'm not sure about the decision I made here. I don't think it actually mattered which card I'd make them discard. I knew that they could just kill my Yorion either way. I kind of didn't want the Yorion to get exiled, but I knew I had a backup anyway, so I could have made them discard the Spikefield Hazard. I spent way too long thinking about this decision. I don't think it mattered. I don't think it mattered. It was so close that, yeah, either way would have been fine. So that's pretty good value for me. Yeah, I finally get to get the white lands, get the plains out of my deck. Because I was stuck on white for a while. And I can draw cards and make them discard cards. They did get to do a lot with these tomes. I don't have anything in this deck that even deals with tome. Because I'm not playing the apparition. But I can just make them discard here. I think somehow they just had nothing. All they had was the Iron Crag, which doesn't really do anything here. I suppose they could use it to boost their Barons. But yeah, this game actually was kind of close. I was really thinking it shouldn't be. But that was a really good draw for them. Basically just let them draw 3 cards. I mean, that's exactly what it did. So I was kind of considering sacking the Omen here. But I did have a Yorion in hand, so usually you just want the Omen on the board. I knew I was losing the Elspeth's Nightmare, but I had Dance to just get it back, so I didn't really care about that. Yeah, I definitely just wanted to Yorion as big as I could here. I don't really think there's any point. I know I could have scryed with the tome first, but I don't think it's that important when I'm just playing an Omen of the Sea anyway. So I just didn't bother getting that 1 scry value. I'm not sure if I should have kept both of those. I suppose the only reason I kept them is because they weren't lands. I don't know. So yeah, of course they were going to play Ugin at some point. They attacked here. I thought for half a second about blocking with Yorion just because I wanted Yorion in the grave. But I didn't, the reason they're doing this is because they want their Ox in the grave. So that they don't have to exile their own thing. So I knew I had the ECD to just get Yorion. I think it's kind of fortunate that I had ECD in this game. I also have Doom Foretold just to kill Yorion anyway, so they had nothing else at that point. Was I saying Yorion then instead of Ugin? I don't know. For some reason I get those two words mixed up and I don't know why. So I can dance pretty big here, or I could just play Emiria's Call. So yeah, I just went for the call. I knew I just had to get creatures that can block these Cinder Barons. I mean Crawling Barons, why did I call it that? But of course they had Storm's Wrath. So I actually wanted the ECD to go into the graveyard. I didn't want to blink it because I wanted to be able to dance it back out in case they played an Ugin. So that was an interesting decision. I know it's nice to keep taxing their mana, and I had nothing to get back with it. But yeah, Doom Foretold a lot better for me here. It stops them from drawing a whole bunch of cards. Because I can get my omens back and they can't. So I have the Simulacrum on defense here. Potentially they just remove it. Yep. I knew that was pretty much going to happen. And they can get in for 8 here if they want. I think Crawling Barons is a problem for this deck. I knew I just wanted to draw Omen of the Sun. Yep, and there it is. So yeah, getting those cards when I needed them. I know I could have made a bunch of tokens with the Omen of the Sun. But then the problem is they might have like Storm's Wrath or something. And then they can get rid of all the tokens in one go and just attack me with the Crawling Barons anyway, which is why I held on to it. I know I could have gained 2 more life and made 2 more 1/1s, but if they just had a sweeper anyway, also I wouldn't have had to discard a card. But yeah, if they just had a sweeper, that would have been worse. So what they did here, they have 4 cards in hand. Do they have another Storm's Wrath? They have Scorching Dragonfire and another 2 removal spells to get rid of the Yorion and exile it. So they exiled all my creatures then. So I think it turns out, I mean, they didn't have the Storm's Wrath, so yes, it would have been better to play the Omen on my turn. But, you know, I definitely wanted to leave up 3 mana for the Omen again here. And I knew that I could just do a massive dance, but the thing is, if I make all 4/4s and then they have a card like that, like Storm's Wrath, they just kill them all. So they thought that they were going to win here, I think, but I did have the Omen. I was actually planning on sacrificing a bunch of things here, I think, which is why I left all my mana up. So yeah, this game, I just felt like this game shouldn't be as close as it was, given that my opponent has 1 card in their hand and I have like infinite. But yeah, that Crawling Barons was a real problem. At any moment they could have just made it big enough to kill me if they could also remove all my creatures. So yeah, they'd used like 3 Storm's Wrath at this point. I wasn't really worried about the 4th. If they did have a 4th Storm's Wrath, then I maybe lose, maybe. But I did gain a bunch of life, so yeah, I wouldn't have lost. And that's what they drew off the top of the deck. They actually drew Ugin off the top, and I was like, Oh, this game is over. Why is it still... Why is this game still going? It's over. Of course they top decked the... Was that... It's either the third or the fourth Ugin in their deck. Because why wouldn't they? They couldn't have just drawn a land or something. They had to draw Ugin. But luckily I have enough artifacts in this deck that Ugin's not a massive problem. And yeah, I just kind of decided to throw the Simulacrum into the grave so that I could draw some cards and I could just get them back anyway. And of course, I can just attack down the Ugin. I don't think I needed to do this. But yeah, this was an interesting... I think I did make the right play. And I'm surprised that I thought about it as much as I did. So yeah, I can just attack Ugin here to death, so I didn't need to ECD it. I mean, I could have. But again, just in case I had Storm's Wrath, definitely want to just hold on to Omen of the Sun here. But I think they're just dead at this point anyway. I have so many creatures. I was definitely counting the number of Storm's Wrath and Ugins they had. And they're pretty much out. So they draw a Phoenix of Ash. They can make a 16/16. And yeah, I can just chomp their guy and hit them back for 1 billion damage. So yeah, it feels good to be that deck. I hate it. I hate that mono red deck. I think I hate that even more than just actual mono red. Red deck wins or whatever you call it. Yeah, I hate that Ugin. I think I just hate Ugin. Technically, Ugin could be in this deck. I just hate it so much. I think even when I heard that they were putting Ugin in M21, I was just like, really? You're gonna put a card that powerful in Standard? Okay. So yeah, this game, they decided to just like pay 2 mana every turn to make the Ginger Brutes unblockable. I'm not entirely sure why. Yeah, I don't know what was in their hand, but I was like, okay, if you want to pay 2 mana every turn, that's fine. I kind of made a mistake here, but it didn't really end up mattering. Since they did that, I was like, how about I just triple block the Hemophage? But what I should have done was just block it with 1 and then play the ECD next turn. I knew I wanted to play ECD on it, but then I was like, well, I can hold on to my ECD if I just kill it now. But I just wanted ECD on the board anyway at this point. Like, I want to play ECD before Yorion. So yeah, having to play Yorion first was not ideal. So yeah, I should have just single blocked the 3/3. I knew I wanted to prevent as much damage as I could, because this mutate deck can get out of hand with all the drains that they can do. But they're not doing a ton of damage to me. And they pretty much just give up at this point. Once I play the ECD on the octopus here, I think they're just over it. I mean, I think they also got stuck on lands. And yep, they just gave up then. Yeah, being that this video is sped up, you can't really see my rank. I was making sure that I put it in after each game. Like I didn't start cutting until you saw the rank go up. But Yeah, yeah, I still have no idea. I think I'm like three wins or something into tier 1. So yeah, this is like a janky rogues deck that Jawari Disruption out of nowhere when like Drowning the Lock wouldn't have been able to counter my Elspeth Nightmare was just like, I know that this is a janky deck, but they like drew perfectly because I don't think the proper like the main rogues deck that everyone plays has Jawari Disruption in it, but it worked for this guy. So this was an interesting decision. I made the right decision though. I knew I was pretty much just going to exile the graveyard anyway. So I just went for the Mystical Dispute here. Not sure why it took me so long to... I guess I did have to think about it. And the funny thing was here, I played the Omen of the Sea and I was like, wait, oh, they had Mystical Dispute. But then... and then I realized, oh, I made them discard that. I could have just made a huge mistake then by playing the Omen of the Sea without playing a land first. And just letting them use their Mystical Dispute. Although if they're just disputing an Omen of the Sea, I suppose that's maybe fine. So they did draw us an island last turn, I think, so they couldn't get the Thought Thief back. I knew that they would need... The reason I left them with Aghanim Awakening is because I knew that they would need to draw exactly like an untapped black source. Here I go for the Yorion instead of the dance because... I mean, I can play around Jawari Disruption and I can just dance for more next turn anyway. But of course they had Anti-Cognition, which is another card that no one really plays in Rogues. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad, it's just like, I definitely was not expecting that. But I still think I ended up making the right play anyway. Because now I get to dance for an extra one. They can't really attack me here. That is funny. I've got 2 ECDs. And yeah, there was 2 on top, so that was a really good scry. I'm glad I got the Omen of the Seas from the dance, and yep. Okay, so I'm 1 win away now from... 1 win away from Mythic, and I thought about playing a few games after I got to Mythic, but I just decided that's enough. It's enough for this video anyway. This video is already going to be long enough. So yeah, this turn 2. Look at this turn 2 from Rogues. And I played first. And here they are with 2 3/2 Death Touches, that flyer, and I've got a ton of cards in my graveyard already. And every rogue they play just gets them another 4 mils. So I'm pretty glad I was playing first in this game. It wasn't looking great anyway. I guess I'm also glad that they had a tap land there. I pretty much was expecting a Thought Thief here, I think. I knew I could have gone for the Shatter, but it's bigger, like it's better later. Also, if they just had a counterspell, which I was pretty much thinking they did, I'd much rather them counter the Simulacrum. So here I think I just go for the Shatter. No, I don't. Okay, fair enough. The Elspeth Nightmare's good enough there. They didn't counter it. They might just have the draw 4, which is pretty good for them. They didn't. I don't know what they had. I have no idea what they had. Maybe they just didn't think it was worth countering the Elspeth Nightmare. But yeah, they had Mystical Dispute. Oh yeah, they couldn't counter the Nightmare because I had 3 mana. So here they have the Nighthawk Scavenger. I knew they didn't have a counter spell, so I could have gone for the Shatter here, and I did, okay. It's not the greatest Shatter though, so maybe I should have just played Yorion. Yeah, I think I was supposed to just play Yorion then. I knew the Shatter wasn't going to be great because they would just draw 2 cards. Since they destroyed my guy, I was like, okay, I'll just get a little bit more value out of the Yorion there. I was kind of expecting them to have a counter spell, which is why I didn't tap my mana first. I was playing around Mystical Dispute, which we already saw that they had. So here they have a 6/3 Flying Death Touch, but I can make 2 4/4s. I could have also just Shattered the Sky, I suppose, but then they would draw a card, and I kind of don't want them to draw cards because I don't want them to have counter spells. So here I'm going to go for a dance, I think, and I leave. Like, this was interesting. I play around Mystical Dispute, which is why I leave 3 mana up. Also, if they counter it, it's better to not tap all your mana anyway, so you can still do other things. I think this game I was like, how is there no Doom Fortolds in the graveyard when I've been milled so much? But of course they had the counterspell anyway, so it didn't really matter. I think it maybe would have been better to play the Golden Egg then. But yeah, I was just trying to scry here. I knew I just wanted to draw good cards. I didn't really like playing the Omen of the Sun. Doesn't do a whole lot here. I can't really attack with the 1/1s because then they just gain 1 billion life by blocking with the Nighthawk. So eventually I drew another dance, so that's pretty good, assuming they don't have another counterspell, which is entirely possible. And they draw into the story, but I suppose I was fortunate that they didn't draw that earlier than they did. But I was pretty sure they would probably just have a ton of counterspells now. So one of the reasons I was sacking my Omens because I was planning on using Dance to get my enchantments back, but I did have plenty in the graveyard anyway, so I don't think it really mattered. So here I guess I was kind of hoping they didn't have a counterspell, but I can just go for the Shatter the Sky, and if that gets countered, then I can Dance. So that's exactly what I did. They pretty much had to counter the Shatter. I mean, they didn't have to, but I mean, they don't know that I have Dance here, so. And I would kind of be just dead if they, like if I didn't. But yeah, I definitely checked the graveyard to see if there was an ECD in there. Sometimes you don't notice it because it looks like exactly like Birth of Meletus. Or Meletus? I don't know. But yeah, was able to get an ECD because they milled it, and there's the other 2. I mean, I guess there's 4 in this deck. At first there was only like 2 or 3, and I guess I just over time just increased the number of ECDs. So I know that they have Brazen Borrower here. They would have been dead if they didn't. I almost made a mistake here. Like, this game is basically in the bag, but I almost made a huge mistake without even realizing it. I almost played a Simulacrum here. and that would have just lost me the game. Because they had 8 damage. 8 damage in the air that I couldn't answer. So I definitely had to gain life here. Whereas if I played a Simulacrum, I was just dead. And I already had like all that information. So yeah, I made it to Mythic. Ended up 7-3. I guess I won like 6 games in a row at the end there. And I think because it's near the end of the season, maybe all the good players are already Mythic. I'm not saying these players are bad or anything. They are still in Diamond. But yeah. Pretty happy how it ended up. And like 2 of those losses, I just made like horrible mistakes. And that I would not like to watch those games again. But I'll end the video showing the deck, which I've been changing like a little bit here and there. There's the 94%. I'm guessing maybe it just puts you somewhere in the middle when you just get to Mythic, or maybe it's based on your win record. But here we go. Yeah, I didn't make any changes like from the start of this video to the end. Like I haven't changed this deck for a while, I suppose, a little while. I used to have Shark Typhoons in this deck, but I ended up taking them out so that I could have 4 Simulacrum, and I'm very happy with that decision. I don't think you need Shark Typhoon. I know it's another win condition, but Dance is basically a win condition anyway. Like you don't really need more win conditions. I know this is kind of short on win conditions, this deck, but you know, Dance, there's 4 Dance, they can make a bunch of 4/4s, and Doom Foretold can just win you the game by itself. So yeah, Amiri's Call. I'm not sure if I don't think I need the Seagate Restoration, because you always have things to do, you always have cards in your hand that you don't really need. And I want as many basics as I can have, because I am playing Simulacrum. I know the mana base is a little bit weird, given that I have 4 Tranquil Coves, but the reason that I'm not playing Scrylands is because rogues just wreck you anyway. Like if you're playing as rogues, the Scrylands do absolutely nothing. So, I mean, gaining 1 life, is that ever relevant? Kind of sometimes. But I definitely just wanted a dual land, given that this is a 3-color deck. Don't want to get stuck on color. So, yeah, I'm not saying this deck is perfect, but it was good enough to get me to Mythic. And this is basically the same deck that I played last month to get to Mythic. I did make a few changes. I'm not sure if you want another tome. Like, that's kind of... maybe you do, maybe you don't. I think you need the Omens, though. I think you need the Omen of the Sun. Just against aggro. If you really want, you can just cut one of those for another tome, but... yeah, you always seem to have... like, given that there are 4 cards that just fix your deck, all you need, where all you need is 2 lands, so that those 4 2 mana cost cards, you basically never need to mulligan. Given that, you know, half of those are also just colorless cards as well, is good. So yeah, that's the deck. I got to Mythic in November, and yeah, it does take a little while to win with this deck. Like, the games sometimes are pretty long, but I think it's good enough. Like, it's got things, it's pretty good against Gruul, it's pretty good against Rogues, which is mostly what you're playing against. So yeah. Yeah, I was pretty happy with this video. Even I mean, despite the 2 mistakes. So yeah, 7-3. I ended up going to get to Mythic in November with Esper, Yorion, Doom, I guess Dance and the Mance. So thanks for watching. Bye.